Are you looking for a fun and easy woodworking project to make a great sign background for any event? From wedding signs to bridal showers or anything you're celebrating, stay tuned to see how we make this simple but awesome wooden sign. All right, so here we are with the sign, and this is in the plastic protection right now just because I don't want to risk messing up anything on the actual final product. But what we're going to do is we're going to take some quick measurements just so we can figure out the size of the wood backing that we want to make. So with my tape measure, we're just going to see that the width is 20 inches. And now let's go ahead and take the height. And that looks like it's going to be 30 inches. So we're going to have a total dimension of 20 inches by 30 inches. So now I'm just going to go ahead and show a quick diagram of the plan for the size wood backing we're going to make, and then we'll jump into the actual process of making everything. So let's check that out. Okay, so here we have a digital example of what we want the final project to look like. So as you can see, we ended up going with 5 fence pickets, and we're going to want to cut those to a specific size so that we can put them all together and then have that as a wooden backing for the poster. So the first thing we did was we took the measurements of the poster, and we found that it was 30 inches tall and 20 inches wide. So then from that point, what we did was we decided we wanted to figure out the correct measurements so that we would have the fence pickets as the wooden backing and have the measurements be just right so that the poster fit with a little bit of the wood backing showing all the way around. And so what we decided was we wanted each fence picket to be 5 inches wide. So when we have the 5-inch wide fence pickets, we decided 5 of those would be perfect to make 25 inches wide total for the wooden backing. And then we decided to make a height of 35.5 inches. And that way, as you can see with the measurements of the poster, it would turn out exactly the way we wanted. So now what we're going to do is we're going to jump back into the video and take a look at how we create this project. All right, so here we have our first fence picket, and so what we're going to do is we're going to consider a few things. Number one, we wanted to have the width of the actual fence picket for each portion of the backing about 5 inches. As you can see here, it's about 5.5 inches. And so to get rid of that ½ inch, what we want to take a look at is a couple things. The first thing I noticed is there's a knot right here. And so depending on the look you're going for, if you want to have a knot on the edge, or if you don't want to have a knot on the edge, those are things you want to consider. I'm going to go ahead and take off this knot because it looks like that is just about a ½ inch, so there'll be a little bit of a knot left. And so we can go ahead and consider that later on. Another thing we need to consider is the entire height of the sign was 30 inches, and we want to have a little bit of wood showing on the top and on the bottom. And so this entire fence picket is 72 inches long. And so if I measure it, I know it's a little out of the screen, but if I measure it, this is actually 72 inches long, this entire fence picket. But one thing you want to consider is on this end of the fence picket, you can see there's a squared edge. However, on the opposite side, you'll notice that there's 45-degree cuts on the edges. So what we're going to want to do is we're going to want to cut this portion off so we have a squared edge on the end. So the first thing we're going to do, we're going to slide our fence picket down, and then we're going to go ahead and mark off this extra inch to get rid of these 45-inch or 45-degree cuts. So I'm just going to take that speed square, and I'm just going to draw a straight line directly across so we can make sure that we get those 45 degrees cut off. All right, so we have our line right here. I'm going to go ahead and use my speed square to make a straight edge to cut along, and we're going to go ahead and knock off this last little inch that we have of the fence picket. All right, so now we'll go ahead and release the clamp, and what you can see is we now have that straight edge here, and then we also have the straight edge here. So now what I'm going to go ahead and do is measure the length of the actual fence picket, find the center point, and then cut that in half, and then we should have 2 equal size fence pickets that are almost ready for the table saw. All right, and now we can see we have 2 of the exact same length boards. So now I'm gonna go ahead and finish up all of the fence pickets that I need. We wanted to use a total of 5 to make the total width 25 inches. So I'll finish up getting the rest of the fence pickets cut to size, and then we're gonna move over to the table saw. All right, so for the next step of this process, we're now here at the table saw. I've got the table saw unplugged for safety purposes because I'm gonna be working with the blade to raise it up. So what we want to do is we want to raise the blade high enough so that it goes just about 1/2 of a tooth above the actual width of the wood that we're cutting. So I know you're a little bit far away, but there's about 1/2 of a tooth height of the blade above the wood that we're going to be cutting. And then what we're going to do also is on our table saw on the side facing me, there's actually a ruler here on the side. We're not going to have to be super accurate to make sure that it's to the T. But basically, we're gonna make it so that we have the rack and pinion fence, and we're gonna slide it so it's lined up with the 5-inch mark here on the side. And I'll go ahead and lock it into place. And so basically, when we push this piece of wood through the saw, what it's gonna do is it's gonna cut off that little 1/2 inch, and then we'll measure it with the tape measure, and then we'll see if that's the width that we're looking for. And then once we set this up for the first piece of wood, we can just slide every single piece of wood through, and it'll be a super quick process. So let's go ahead and get that going. All right, so we went ahead and got the wood through the table saw, and now as you can see, we are sitting right at 5 inches. And so we know that we're going to have accurate cuts for what we're looking for. And so now that we know that we have the correct width, we can go ahead and just run all the wood through in a super quick process. So let's go ahead and knock that out. One thing I wanted to cover, this is that knot that I was talking about. So we are going to take about that 1/2 inch off of the piece of wood right here, but when we cut this knot, we might not remove the whole thing, so a piece of that might actually cause some type of like hole or circle look. So I'm going to go ahead and rip this through, and then we'll see what we get. All right, so here we are with that little knot, and as you can see, when we ran it to the table saw, we took it off, and now you've got a lot more clean look at that little spot right where the knot was. So that turned out really well. All right, so now we have all the wood cut, and so now what we're gonna do is we're gonna do a dry fit. So again, we have this plastic cover on here so it doesn't get messed up for the client, so I'm gonna go ahead and move that over. And now what you'll see is we have all 5 of our 5-inch wooden planks made from the fence pickets. So what we're gonna go ahead and do is just lay them out all together. And now you can see that we've got, flip that one over. And now you can see we've got 5 equal sizes of the wooden planks. Now it was requested that this be all natural wood, so we're not gonna put any stain or anything on it, but if you want to, you can paint it any color you want. I have videos showing how to make it a rustic color, but so for right now, this is how it's going to look. So as you can see, we've got enough room left on each side for the wood to show behind the sign. We've also got enough space on the top and on the bottom, so all we need to do is just go ahead and find the center once we're ready to place it. But what we're gonna do right now is I'm gonna flip all of these boards over, and I'm gonna show how we can attach this from behind. So let's go ahead and take a look at that step. Okay, so now we've got the back side showing for all the wood pickets that we have. And what we're gonna do is we're going to attach these little wooden braces that I have. These are actually those 1/2-inch pieces from the fence pickets that we cut off. So basically what we're gonna do is just attach them going across just like this. And what that'll do is it'll help keep all of the structure together. And so it'll basically have 4 pieces running just like that. Now one thing to remember, this is not going to be a load-bearing item, and the final product is actually going to be on a display easel type structure. And so this actually is not going to be load bearing at all. So we don't need to worry about making sure that it holds up any certain amount of weight other than that sign that we have. So what I'm going to be doing is I'm going to use wood glue, and I'm going to be using my brad nailer. And basically what we're going to do is put the wood glue and then use the brad nailer to actually attach the wood together, and that should hold firm just fine. And so let's go ahead and get started with that process. All right, and so now I'll go ahead and lift this up. And as you can see, we've got all 4 pieces of backboard that are bracing the wood together. We've got the wood glue as well. And then one thing to remember, all of these 1/2-inch pieces were just the scraps that we cut off from the 5-inch boards, because these are originally 5.5 inches. So this is just repurposing the wood that we cut off the sides just to be able to make sure that we have structural framing in the back. And then you'll notice, once I turn it around, we have no nails poking through, and all the wood looks great. So I'll go ahead and put this down and then show one more time what the final product is going to look like once we actually get this all dried up. Okay, so again, in the protective plastic, this is what the product is going to look like once we get everything attached. So they wanted that natural wood color, like I said. You can always stain it, you can paint it whatever color you want, but basically this is what it looks like, and this is what the final product is going to look like once we remove the plastic and then attach the sign.